It's time to lock in and win with Clock Mirage, the latest Beyblade X release that is a powerful stamina type with a major weakness. In this video, we'll be exploring the best possible combinations to use for Clock Mirage and strategy in order for you to win. So if you are excited here and like bays that spin, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts. And as well, make sure to check out Mall of Bays. We have a lot of restocking going on, like on the Infinity Stadium. We have a lot of stuff being sold separately, so if you want to check it out, we import from Japan and we are Canadian based. It is an optional way to support the channel, and I appreciate any and all support regardless. So to kind of go over what makes Clock Mirage such a special release, it is a very wide blade and it has the most powerful stamina performance compared to anything in the meta right now. You will beat a Wizard Rod on ball, or probably any ball variant, generally speaking. One of the common combinations to use Wizard Rod on Hexa, you will probably outspin that. Dragoon on Elevate, that is known to be a very good equalizer. Guess what? Dragoon is also going to get defeated by Clock Mirage. Yeah, it turns out a giant circle is probably going to do a lot better than the shape that Cobalt Dragoon actually has. And the list can go on. So again, with all this power, you're thinking, well, this just sounds like so good, but here's the thing. Clock Mirage is given the big weakness of only being compatible with simple ratchets, where it does not matter what type of resistance you have on a bit, you will be able to twist and turn the same. So you would think, okay, so that just means it has to hit the ratchet, so, you know, obviously attack blades are probably gonna have an easy time against it. Well, not exactly, because you can also still burst to passive stamina builds. Like, for an example, this one is, I literally had a Shark Scale on Hexa, which is kind of a stamina combination against Clock Mirage, and I was going to probably get outspun, because I just wouldn't have greater stamina than Clock Mirage, and I just randomly got around to bursting it. So even on passive builds, you can burst. Now, obviously, the major weakness would be Clock Mirage, generally speaking, against attack types, you're gonna probably be afraid. But no, you could also burst passively to stamina types. I want to also mention that either touching the floor with a simple ratchet or even touching the rail could also trigger a burst, just because of how the ratchet's going to like hit the floor then after start to turn. For any single point that you gain, you will run the risk of losing 2 points. Okay, so before we get into even the combinations and some interesting matchups that Clock Mirage can have, what is the best strategy to run Clock? So obviously I'm going to say you do have to study your local meta. Now, generally speaking, you know, for an example, players here might have a stamina bay or something like that, maybe typically on the 2nd slot or the 3rd slot. So you would try to pick Clock Mirage there for 3-on-3 to try to read your opponent and to hopefully get it. And then after in the reshuffle, I've seen, for an example, sometimes, let's say, players my age put in the 3rd slot at the end. A lot of that's going to just be strategy and trying to read where your opponent's going to put it into that specific slot. But what are the best combinations for you to actually use with it? So for ratchets and bits, keep in mind that you can only use this on simple ratchets. So we currently have 965, M85, 385, and 455. So M85 bursts pretty easily just because the contact points are very much exposed. 965, you would think it wouldn't be that bad, but I don't know why. It just bursts so easily for me, so I'm personally not a fan. I do find that 385 is not that bad. I'll get into what bits you can probably use with specifically 385, but most consistent, this shouldn't be too much of a surprise, is probably going to be the lowest type possible, 455. So in terms of bit choice and variety, generally speaking, some bits that I've seen that have had some success have been Wedge, Low Orb, Under Needle, Hexa, you know, these are things that you could probably be fine with. I think the most you could probably bet on is maybe Low Orb or Under Needle, for the obvious reason that you're going to have a lot of that lower height thanks to those bits. Wedge and Low Orb have pretty good stamina, I would say, and Low Orb has some pretty decent defense. Under Needle, I think, probably has the best raw stamina, but is a little bit easy to KO compared to the other ones. I would say if you're doing 385, 385, 385 under needle maybe makes some sense. 455, I would probably just do like a low orb or something like that. In fact, I'll probably have the claim that Clock Mirage 455 low orb is probably the most consistent option to use right now. So that pretty much means if you just bought one Wizard Arc, you already have everything that you need to probably make Clock Mirage do good. So for how to launch Clock Mirage, this is mostly just general knowledge. This is not like some really surprising thing to say. Against stamina, I honestly think you can launch as hard as you want against it. But against attack stuff, I do want to say it might be a little bit easier not to do a complete hard launch. That way you're not generating so much recoil against the attack blade. You do something like a mid to a light launch, not super weak. You want enough spin to actually be able to outspin them. That's kind of just the general rule of thumb. So again, these stamina types, it'll probably beat with relative ease. Now, for attack types, since our current meta is pretty much focused on a Hover Wyvern Shark Scale. Now, for attack stuff, if you're against Shark Scale is gonna actually just make you fuck off because it's gonna... Shark Scale has very low placed contact points that makes it very easy to burst and destroy Clock Mirage. Now, Hover Wyvern, I say, is a pretty good attacker, but the thing with Hover Wyvern that you want to notice is that the actual contact points are placed much higher than Shark Scale. So, for an example, in a tournament that I played recently, I was not able to pocket and defeat a Clock Mirage. I actually was failing quite a bit because of Hover's contact points. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because now we kind of got one where it's probably going to do okay against, and another one where it's probably going to die really badly. But there is another counter to Clock Mirage, and this is something that I've seen slowly starting to pop up in the general meta. It's Shark Scale on stamina builds. This could be, for an example, using a Hexa bit, a Freeball bit, or etc. The reason why this is going to be very scary is that these things already do well on their own. Like a Shark Scale can probably do well against these other stamina type bays, since it already has low place contact points, right? And attack is already almost a guarantee. To have a stamina build means you're probably gonna just burst Clock Mirage. You might not outspin it, but you'll probably get the luck there. Like even in a match I didn't outspin it, but I did KO it. So the last thing I want to mention also is in the context of what type of format that you play. And this is going to matter quite a bit for the relevancy of Clock Mirage, because for an example, if you were doing like a 1v1 battle format, right? Like let's say like B4 in Japan, you can probably almost get away with using Clock Mirage because it's just a blind 1v1. It's first to 4. I would still say that builds like Scale Hexa, or let's say Scale Freeball, might check Clock Mirage and just burst it. With 3-on-3, that's going to be heavily reliant, not just let's say on launch tech, how do you launch it, how do you launch to avoid, which that is another can of worms, but it's what slot do you put Clock to be successful. Now, it also depends what points this is up to, and this is where we get into the fan stuff with WBO for the different options. If you are doing 3-on-3 first to 4, I think Clock is fine to use because the point that it can win, I think, is worth potentially that risk. If it's 3-on-3 first to 5 or first to 7, this release becomes a liability because with every burst loss that is possible, you run the risk of losing so much for so little gain, where it doesn't make any sense at all for you to use it. I think the best way for Clock to win would be some way where you can maximize your strategy. So a format, for an example, like WBO deck format, I think is maybe where Clock Mirage could shine. So overall, we have a release that I would say is decently balanced. I do think that this release is probably fair if you want to have, let's say, this super powerful stamina release. There are some weaknesses to it. Potential KO risk, potential burst risk. I don't think it's broken or anything. I just think my take is if you're gonna lose more than you gain, I don't necessarily think this is worth the risk. So this release is probably gonna be super perfect if you are a stamina purist, or let's say, in air quotes, you're a super high skilled player, then maybe you'll absolutely love Clock Mirage. But I would honestly say that because of the high skill ceiling, you don't need to try to get it right now. You don't need like the FOMO, fear of missing coming out, you can just wait for like Hasbro for something like this. Now, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. This is a very different video from what I usually do, because usually I just do the testing format of like 4 bays and 20 battles each, and I'll still be doing that, but for something like this, I almost feel like it's more interesting to try to do a different type of breakdown. So if you enjoy this type of format, let me know. If you prefer the old format, whatever, which I'll still be doing, and you want me to do it like that for the future, then I don't mind. I just want to say thank you all for watching. If you have any insights, any competitive advice, please let me know. And that's going to be it for this video. I want to say take care and bye.